Right, so this all started for me with a signed hardback and a black marker pen. I've got a signed hardback copy of Clifford Stoll's The Cuckoo's Egg on my shelf. Proper fanboy moment when I got him to sign it. He writes this wild story about chasing a hacker over a 75-cent billing error, less than a quid. That book basically hardwired my brain to never ignore tiny, boring mistakes in numbers or logs again.
And on the face of it, it really is the dullest possible beginning, isn't it? Not lasers and cloak and dagger spies, just an accounts mismatch.
Yep, the most exciting phrase in computing. Your totals don't balance. But that's the point, right? It looks boring until you realise it's the loose thread.
Exactly. So, picture the mid-1980s at Lawrence Berkeley Lab in California. No laptops on every desk. Instead, you've got this one big shared computer system, and everybody dials in from terminals or dumb screens. You got billed for how much computer time you used, CPU seconds, storage, all that joy. Because the lab had to spread the cost across the different research projects and funding bodies. One day, the accounts are out by about 75 cents. Nobody's house is getting repossessed over it. But the accountants basically say, Cliff, you're the sysadmin. There's a bug in your usage program. Fix it.
And this is the bit I love. He could have rounded it off, bodged the numbers, moved on with his life. Instead, he treats it like a proper mystery. Why is the total wrong? Which user? Which session?
That's where the mindset kicks in. Most places would say, meh, it's pennies, we'll write it off. He goes the other way. If the system's off by 75 cents today, what's it off by that we haven't noticed?
Yeah. So he digs into the usage records, the equivalent of your system invoices and login reports. And he starts going line by line, looking at who was logged in, how long for, which project should be billed. And this is where it stops being a boring accounts job and turns into a thriller. Because he finds this odd user account, one that doesn't quite match the normal patterns. Logins at weird hours, when no one sensible is in the lab. Connections that don't line up with someone's office hours or experiments. And the more he looks at the history, the more it smells like a real person sneaking in, not just a maths error in his billing script.
It's like noticing someone's been using your workshop at 3 a.m, but the tools are all put back neatly, so you only spot it when the electric bill is a few quid higher.
That's a good small business analogy, actually, because a lot of you listening have that same kind of quiet leakage. An extra Microsoft 365 login, a VPN connection at midnight, a tiny bit more data transfer on the broadband. It doesn't scream, we've been hacked. It just looks off.
Yeah, and Clifford Stoll basically proves the point. You often meet your hacker in the bookkeeping. It starts with, why is this number wrong? Why is this user on the system when they shouldn't be? For me, that's been a guiding thing my whole career. I've seen proper incidents start with, that's funny. That server rebooted once last night. Or, why did this invoice system send out one extra email? So in this episode, we're going to walk through how Stoll went from a 75-cent error to tracking an actual spy, and then pull out what a small business in 2026 can nick from his playbook. And none of it needs state-of-the-art kit, just curiosity, logs, and a refusal to shrug and move on.
He's the guy with the plan for your online life. Keeps your data safe, cuts through the strife. Small biz owners, yeah, this is your guide. Cyber threats, beware, no place to hide. The small business cybersecurity guy, guarding your world with a sharp eagle eye. Tips and tricks to keep your systems tight. Stay secure, stay strong in the digital fight.
Welcome back to the Small Business Cybersecurity Guy. I'm Noel Bradford with Graham Faulkner and Morven McLeod. And this one is personal for me because Clifford Stoll's The Cuckoo's Egg has been an inspiration for years. What follows is a story about a tiny accounting error that turned into a Cold War spy hunt and the practical lessons small businesses can steal from it.
To really appreciate what he did, we have to go back to the era of dial-up. no fibre, no Wi-Fi. You had a phone line, a modem, and that glorious screeching handshake noise when you connected.
You basically phoned the computer. Literally. Your terminal called a number, the modem answered, and off you went. Which meant if someone dodgy called in, there was a phone bill, and there were call records. Old school breadcrumbs.
Oh, the forbidden tone. And Stoll made full use of that. Once he suspected this wasn't just a software bug, he turned on more detailed record keeping on the lab systems. So instead of just knowing user X was connected for an hour, he started logging what they actually did, which commands they ran, which files they touched, which systems they tried to jump into. Basically, primitive session logging. Today, you'd call it audit logs or activity logs. Back then, it was print absolutely everything the sod types.
And because this mystery user often dialed in at inconvenient hours, Clifford did something brilliantly low-tech. He built a little alarm, a physical one. When his hacker logged in, a beeper would go off at home, so he could leg it to the terminal and watch it live.
I love that bit. That's exactly the kind of bodge you do in a small business. Raspberry Pi, cheap speaker, little script that pings when there's a suspicious login. Doesn't have to be fancy. Just make noise when weird thing happens.
Yeah, we massively overcomplicate this stuff now. He basically had a custom alert. Today, your equivalents are get email alerts for new logins, new devices, admin changes. Switch on whatever simple notifications your kit already offers. It's the same idea as his beeper. Now, because people were dialing in over phone lines, he could also work with the phone company. This is important. He realised, if I can keep the hacker online long enough, the telco engineers can trace the route of the call through the phone exchanges and international links.
So he starts doing something quite counterintuitive. Instead of kicking the intruder off, he carefully keeps them talking. He lets them wander around the system within limits, precisely so the trace has time to complete.
Yeah, he basically runs a controlled sting on his own network. He matches the times in his computer logs. Hacker connected at 0217, did these commands until 0242. With the telco's trace info, call at 0217 came through these switches, then over an international link. Over time, that gives a decent picture of who's connecting, when, and roughly from where.
He ends up seeing the trail go out of the US, across to Europe, and ultimately to Germany. And remember, he's doing this with printouts, a beeper, and a phone company on speed dial. No seam, no SOC, no threat intel feeds, just persistence and carefully lined up evidence. So what's the SME lesson in all this? A few things. 1. Keep decent logs. Your firewall, your router, Microsoft 365, Google Workspace, whatever cloud apps you use, turn on logging and don't let it all auto-delete after one day. 2. Set up simple alerts. The beeper of 2026 is text me if someone signs in from a new location, or email me if there are 10 failed logins.
And 3, don't forget your providers. Clifford leaned on the phone company. You can lean on your IT support, your ISP, your cloud vendor. If you see dodgy activity, they often have more data than you do. Network logs, access records, abuse teams who can look deeper. Treat them as part of your incident response, not just the people you shout at when the broadband drops.
In other words, the tools have changed, but the principles haven't. Watch what's happening, record it, get notified when it's weird, and don't try to play lone hero when your providers can help you trace what's really going on.
Don't leave your business exposed. Hit subscribe and like the show. Stay informed and protected. Small business cybersecurity guy. Security tips you can trust. Subscribe now. Stay secure.
So where did all this lead? Over months of logging and tracing, the trail points to a hacker in West Germany. That was Marcus Hess, someone who, from what we know, was breaking into systems and passing information to Soviet intelligence during the Cold War. This case is widely treated as one of the first big cyber espionage stories.
From a 75-cent anomaly in a research lab to a spy case stretching across continents. It's very from petty cash to geopolitics, isn't it?
And that's exactly why it still matters for small businesses now. Because the steps in the middle, the logging, the pattern spotting, the hang on, that's odd, they're the same moves you need today, even if your attacker isn't working for a foreign intelligence service.
Yeah, let's translate this into 2026 English. What are logs for you? It could be your router or firewall history. Who's connecting? From where? How much data? Your cloud app logs, Microsoft 365, Google, Xero, whatever you use. They'll have sign-in records, device info, sometimes even which files were accessed. Then there are your endpoint logs, antivirus alerts, EDR alerts if you've got that, Windows event logs. You do not need to become a full-time analyst, but you should at least know, where do I look and how long is that stuff kept for?
And decide what's worth keeping. For most small firms, I'd say keep sign-in and admin change logs for at least 3 months, ideally longer. Keep firewall router logs for a decent window. Even a month can be a lifesaver. And make sure backup records exist, so if someone wipes things, you've still got evidence.
Let's talk about what to do if something looks off. Suppose you see logins at 3 a.m. from a country you don't work in, or your account software shows access from a strange IP. What then?
Step 1, don't panic, and don't start randomly deleting stuff to tidy up. Evidence is your friend. Step 2, capture what you see. Screenshots, export the logs, note the dates and times. Step 3, change passwords and, if possible, force sign-outs for that account. And crucially, step 4, call someone. Your IT support, your cyber insurance incident line if you've got one, or if it feels serious, like data theft, fraud, that kind of thing, consider talking to Action Fraud or the police.
And push past the everyone shrugs problem. If someone on your team says, it's probably nothing, you're allowed to be the annoying one who says, I'm not happy, we're looking at this properly. Clifford Stoll was that annoying person. Without him, that 75-cent error would have just been written off.
There's also a cultural piece here. Curiosity as a security tool. If your staff feel they can say, this email looked weird, so I checked, or I saw a login from a place I didn't recognise, without being laughed at, you'll catch problems earlier.
Yeah, curiosity, plus a bit of bloody-mindedness. Look, you might not be able to run a global trace the way Stoll did, but you can absolutely copy his mindset. Don't ignore little anomalies. Use the tools you already have. Work with your providers, not against them. And remember that a weird £1 billing blip in your SaaS app might be the first sign of someone testing the water.
And the kit barrier is tiny. If all you can afford is proper passwords, multi-factor login, cloud logs turned on, and a 10-minute review once a week, you're already way ahead of most folk. Clifford did his thing with printouts and a beeper. You've got far more in your smartphone.
So perhaps the takeaway is, treat your small business systems with the same seriousness a Cold War lab eventually did. Not because you're guarding nuclear secrets, but because you're guarding payroll, client lists, invoices, the lifeblood of your business.
Couldn't agree more. And there's one more thing worth adding about Stoll himself. After the cuckoo's egg, he wrote Silicon Snake Oil, and in it he warned, I'm mainly speaking to people who feel mystically lured to the internet. Lotus eaters, beware. Life in the real world is far more interesting, far more important, far richer than anything you'll ever find on a computer screen.
Want the deep dive? Check the sources. All the details, guides, and courses. Hit the blog for scripts and more. The Small Business Cybersecurity Guide.co.uk. The blog. Real security. No fluff.
All right, let's land this. For everyone listening, next time something in your logs or bills looks too small to care about, just remember Clifford Stoll, his 75 cents, and my battered signed copy glaring at me from the bookshelf. Be curious, be a bit stubborn, and don't let the weird stuff slide.
He later walked that back in 2010, saying, "Of my many mistakes, flubs and howlers, few have been as public as my 1995 howler. Now, whenever I think I know what's happening, I temper my thoughts. Might be wrong, Cliff." It's a good reminder that even the people who spot the pattern can still get the bigger picture wrong.
If you want help figuring out where your logs live or what alerts to switch on, we'll stick some pointers in the show notes. You don't have to do this alone.
And we'll be back with more tales of chaos, curiosity, and hopefully fewer spies.
Cheers for listening to the Small Business Cybersecurity Guy. Graham, Morven, thanks as always.
Pleasure as ever.
Yep, thanks folks. Mind your logs.
All right, we're out. Stay safe, don't ignore the pennies, and we'll catch you next time.
Right, before we let you go completely, let's have a quick chat about the boring but necessary legal bits. Don't worry, I'll make this as painless as possible. First up, and this is important, everything we've said today represents our own personal opinions and experiences. These views are ours alone and don't represent any organisation we work for, any employers, advertisers, sponsors, or anyone else who might be connected to the show. When we're giving you advice or sharing our thoughts, that's coming from us as individuals, not speaking on behalf of anyone else. Everything we've talked about today is for general guidance. It's meant to point you in the right direction, but it absolutely shouldn't be treated as professional advice tailored specifically to your business. Your situation is unique. What works brilliantly for a Birmingham bakery might be completely useless for a Manchester marketing agency. We do our very best to keep everything accurate and current, but let's be honest here. The cybersecurity world moves faster than a caffeinated squirrel being chased up a tree by Morven's Jack Russell. Things can change between when we record and when you're listening, so always double check critical technical details with qualified professionals before you go making major changes to your systems. If we've mentioned any websites, products or services, we're giving you information, not necessarily giving them our seal of approval. We can't be responsible for what happens on their end or if things go sideways when you use them. Some things we recommend might involve affiliate partnerships. We'll always flag those when they come up because transparency matters. Now, if you're dealing with serious cybersecurity incidents, actual data breaches, or gnarly legal compliance issues, please talk to proper professionals, rather than just relying on podcast advice. We're here to educate and help you understand the landscape, not to replace your security consultant, solicitor, or IT team. This has been a Small Business Cybersecurity Guy production. Copyright 2025, all rights reserved.
Click subscribe and join the ride. Together we'll shield the digital tide. Your business is strong when your data's secure. The Small Biz Cyber Guy, here to ensure. Thanks for listening, we're signing off. Stay cyber safe no matter the cost. The Small Biz Cyber Guy says goodbye. Until next time, keep your day